The term strategic autonomy is talked about a lot these days, especially with regard to India's traditional ties with Russia and the newfound friendship and with the US. It's no longer newfound because it's been on for past 15 years or more, ever since we signed the nuclear accord with America, and we are seen as not an ally but a strategic partnership partner with Americans. But strategic autonomy, does it really come into practice? Because it the signals go out to the other side that it's not okay. And in a multipolar world, post Cold War, post unipolar world, now in this fractious world that we are in, is that strategic autonomy acceptable to anybody?
The overwhelming majority of the international community practices and advocates strategic autonomy. It is the Americans who have created this scenario of a possible new Cold War, where either you are with us or against us. The background is very clear. After the Cold War was over, you had a unipolar world order, and the United States was the hegemon. But much has happened since then. The United States has lost credibility due to its misadventure in Afghanistan and in Iraq and in Libya. They are no longer that credible power that they used to be when they were asserting hegemony. In the meantime, other players have entered the global scenario. You have got China, which is challenging the Americans in various areas, particularly with regard to economy and technology and logistical connectivity. And you have various other countries roughly referred to as middle powers, which are important in their region and are asserting a role for themselves in that regard, in their region. So this is why we call it a multipolar world order, where a large number of countries, usually middle powers, are seeking to assert their point of view and their role in world affairs. And the days of hegemony are done. Okay. Now, this scenario is not a new Cold War. It is basically the rise of a multipolar order. Within the multipolar order, countries assert strategic autonomy. I know that very often when you use a term, it becomes a little boring, it becomes irritating. You see, earlier we used to use the term non-aligned movement. That term meant more or less the same thing, but it had resonance at that time because you had the East and the West, Correct. The Western Alliance and the Eastern Alliance, Soviet Union and the United States. So you were non-aligned. You were not part of one or the other. Once the Cold War was over, it made no sense to be using this term, non-aligned. So scholars started using the term strategic autonomy. When Dr. Jaishankar became the minister, he started saying that, look, let's go beyond strategic autonomy and come up with some other words. So he started talking about plurilateralism, minilateralism, etc. Rather than say strategic autonomy, which means I'm independent and I will take decisions on my own, we are setting up in a positive construct relationships with certain countries which are informal, which are subject-oriented, and they are based on informal consultations, and we take positions which serve our interests. Minilaterals, plurilaterals. You can use any terminology you wish. Why I use strategic autonomy? Because strategic autonomy says precisely what I wish to imply. And that is, I am an independent state. I want to take decisions on my own. I will not be influenced by decisions of other countries. I will take decisions in my national interest. That's what I'm asserting. Overwhelmingly, the international community is doing precisely that. Unless there are countries that are aligned with the Americans,
Okay.
Japan and Korea and Australia and the European Union, even there they have differences.
Right.
But those are differences within the family. But what the Americans have been saying, now you don't know too much about Donald Trump, but I'll say the Americans in general, what they have been saying is that going close to Russia or to China challenges them and that so-called liberal world order. The countries don't believe that. We are not challenging anybody. The days of hegemony are gone. You have to accept that as a reality and get on with it.
But it's really upsetting the Americans. They're going on social media continuously all of this week, past week, talking about how India is funding the Russian war, and now it's come out in the open. You have a war criminal. They term President Putin as a war criminal who cannot go to any country, so he's here in India, and India laying out the red carpet for a war criminal. This is the kind of statements that are coming out from America.
The United States top leadership exemplifies chaos, anarchy, unpredictability. It has shifted very sharply to the right wing and is today pandering to the lowest common denominator, which means the lowest common intellectual capacity. This kind of nonsense is typical in a populist order. People who have very little knowledge on the complexities of world affairs keep on screaming from the rooftop about something or the other. Let us be a little objective here. Large sections of the European Union are engaged with Russia. Many of them are buying Russian energy. The Americans are interacting with the Russians and the Chinese
Buying
and are
uranium.
buying very substantial trade relations. Thank you very much. And they are buying that. Putin has reminded us that nuclear fuel is being purchased by the Americans from Russia. Rare earths are being purchased by different countries all the time. How dare they presume to tell India or any other country what we should do or what we should not do? We don't tell anyone else. When did we last prescribe to someone else?
To Europe especially.
Yes, we've never told them. Yeah. And yet you find that these countries, so there is near total absence of the intellect. And I bemoan that. Because foreign affairs is serious business. It is not meant for loose talk, not meant for jingoism, etc. It is something that you must take into account that there is a world order, that it is under challenge. There is a churn in the world order, and we are all part of it. All of us are taking position to safeguard our interest. In that sense, we are not different from anyone else. But we don't need to point fingers at anyone else. And you know the old adage, you point finger at somebody else, 3 fingers are pointing at you. Nobody. So I would say that we should not take this kind of social media utterances too seriously. The United States is in a mess. I'm going to say this very clearly and frankly to you. The United States is not the country we knew. It is a country devoid of principles, devoid of a moral compass. It is anarchic. You have a leader who is totally self-absorbed and self-consumed, and does very often his antics are a source of comedy and laughter, when the head of the strongest country in the world should be a source of gravitas, of intellectual capacity, a source of moderation and good sense. On the other hand, you have such daily embarrassments from the White House. So I would say that we need to keep our self-confidence in place. We are passing through a complex time. You have a period where the White House is collapsing in front of your eyes. I think this is a bad period for the American and a bad period for world order, but we have to go forward.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching ANI podcast with Smita Prakash.
अगर हम उसको मस्जिद कहेंगे तो फिर विवाद होगा.
The issue is टूटा है क्या भारत?
400 पार का मतलब ये है कि संविधान खतरे में है.
क्या हम लोग ये निर्देश देते हैं कि फला को गिरफ्तार करके जेल डाल दें?
वही तो कह रहे हैं सब.
ये बेबुनियाद निराधार आरोप.
सच्चा सुनना चाहो देखो स्मिता प्रकाश ANI. It does not lie.